Well, the final game to round up this Super Sunday in the Premier League was definitely a juicy one. Tottenham Hotspur hosting Liverpool. Liverpool, who have been wounded in recent times. Janusz, I know that you'll definitely be keeping an eye on them. I know you're a massive fan of Jurgen Klopp and his boy, but they've definitely had some work to do. And it's the Reds indeed that got the win in the end at Spurs. Thoughts on the game? Because like we said, we knew on paper this was going to be a big one. Both teams have had their issues, and we were hoping for a blockbuster matchup in this one. So how did you find it?
To start with, I mean, just a massive game. If you look at Liverpool, right? I mean, going right to Spurs and all of that, we'll get to the details in a sec. But I mean, this was the difference between now moving on up and staying a little bit closer to the top four where Spurs reside. You know, it was 10 points before. Imagine if Liverpool lost, you're talking 13 points. I mean, this is how big this game was. And you know, I mean, I can't believe we're past the fact of not talking about Liverpool as title contenders, as many of us had them ahead of this season, to perhaps talking about, you know, already maybe out of the Champions League running. So this is how important these games are. You know, we look at them in a vacuum sometimes, and we look at Liverpool and obviously their losses to Forest and Leeds consecutively, which in itself is absolutely crazy. But no matter what you think of Spurs and how many players they were missing, you're saying to yourself, wow, it doesn't really matter how you get these points. And that's what happened in the end, because it wasn't all pretty. It started well, which is a massive point for Liverpool, because we all know that they haven't started games well early on. So 2 goals from Mo Salah, who's in form, obviously 9 goals in 8 games in all competitions. So you take those points and run. I mean, it really is that way. Now, Liverpool could have taken care of that game early. They've had their chances, but in the end, you saw the sort of desperations, the substitution patterns, the Joe Gomez coming on and the strikers being withdrawn, where you're just trying to protect the lead at all costs.
We'll definitely get to Spurs in just a bit, but let's talk about the winners. Like you said, Liverpool, they needed this win, and they definitely just threw the kitchen sink at it. And Mo Salah, someone who, believe it or not, people were questioning him and his form, and whether, it was actually Sadio Mane's contributions that made him look as good, if he was going to miss him this season. But he's on a 4-game scoring streak. He got 2 today, definitely flirted with getting that hat trick. What do you make of Mo Salah?
Well, look, I mean, there were question marks. I mean, so much better when he plays centrally, right? I mean, you look at it's still funny looking at it, because when you look at the front three, you always say, well, who's playing central? All 3 can, right? I mean, we had Darwin Nunes playing on the left, and Bobby Firmino on the right, and Mo Salah centrally. But that's been his new role as of late. There's a couple different systems that we've seen 4-4-2 from Jurgen Klopp, but 3 central strikers for the most part. And I don't know if you normally pick Mo Salah in that spot, right? You probably want to get Darwin Nunes going. Speaking of whom, he really got Liverpool going, let's be honest, because he's been criticized more maybe than Mo Salah, for sure, because Mo Salah's been scoring, as I've mentioned. But Darwin Nunes, not only has he been scoring, but in this particular game, if you remember, before they scored a couple times, from the get-go, from the opening whistle, he was really there or thereabout. Couple misses, shots from distance. So he was busy. And of course, he played a massive role in that first goal, which was really, really good when Robertson found Darwin Nunes. And then, I guess the composure to see Mo Salah, who kind of instinctively 1-2 touch, put that away. For Mo Salah, think about it. When you look at Mo Salah, really, in so many ways, I think it is his best position. We're so used to him being on that right-hand side because he can come in on the left foot. But I just think that if you give him the freedom to be anywhere, that's where he thrives.
And then overall, with Liverpool, we know, of course, there's still a lot of factors, being that the fact that the World Cup is coming up in just about 2 weeks' time. We know that Liverpool do have a lot that will be out on international duty. Jurgen Klopp does talk about how sometimes they're so unlucky with injuries. Fingers crossed they don't get it. But from what you saw today, how helpful is this win, especially mentally, for Liverpool, given what they've been through?
Yeah, I mean, don't want to repeat myself with this one. It's just massive. I mean, even if Liverpool were at top of the table, right? You look at this game and say, hey, Spurs away. I mean, it doesn't change no matter where you are and what situation you're in. So this is massive. And when I looked at this game, I think it summarizes both teams where they are to some degree, right? Liverpool, just to close the book on them, they just lack defensive solidity. That's something that they've always had. Take care of that, and the rest will take care of itself, even with the players that they're missing, because they've got enough. I just mentioned three big names, and you saw Mo Salah scoring. Darwin Nunez can do that. Bobby Firmino's been scoring. That'll be fine. I'm almost getting past the midfield that they need to fix. So that summarizes them. For Spurs, that's another team, right? I mean, look at the difference. So what do we know about Spurs and Antonio Conte? First and foremost, when you're losing, because Liverpool had significant names out of the game, right? If you look at just Luis Diaz alone, right? But they can withstand that. There's still depth. For Spurs, some things you can't cheat. You just can't cheat them. And when you lose Heung-min Son on top of that, right? No Richarlison, no Romero in the back. You just can't cheat that. And even with Kulusevski, who's been out for a long time, you saw the difference. Immediately he comes into the game and finds Harry Kane for that goal, right? With, I don't know, first or second touch in the game. So that just goes to show you, for them, it's 3-4 players that have been out consistently for long periods of time. And the flip side of that, Alexis, is, to summarize both teams, is, we do have Spurs, who in a game against Bournemouth and Marseille had to come back because they're so pragmatic in the first half, home or away. They're just afraid to play. And then when they do get behind, what happens? You see a team that can not only score, but beat just about anyone. It looks that way. Today they didn't, but they came very, very close in the end. And it was an avalanche from the beginning of the second half to some degree, an avalanche of Spurs just going on, looking absolutely different. Jekyll and Hyde under Antonio Conte within games, and depending on which competition you're looking for, that's the balance that he's going to have to strike and decide what sort of team that Spurs are going to be. But for that to happen, they really have to be healthy, because the depth is not there.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.